much to cover. I think
Glad you waited to record.
I think Naomi's got us covered pretty good tonight. So what I'd like to do is call the PAB to order, since we have a quorum, 6:01, and you know, the first order of business is to approve the agenda.
I make a motion, Jerry, we approve the agenda as posted.
Thank you, guys. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Unanimous. Approval of the minutes of February 24th. They've all been distributed to all of you. Thank you very much, Jessica, for all of your listening to our babble on a tape recording. And
I'm glad you got it down to, and I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented, and I commend her on getting it down to 5 pages and as easy to read as she could. They were excellent.
yeah,
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So opposed? So carried. Yeah, it's that's got to be commendable. Sometimes we can go off the reservation in our conversations a little, but that's all right. I love I love the speech and let it go where it needs to go sometimes, and then rein it in later. All right, tonight is Naomi's gonna, you know, hold the stage, and but first I want to share conversations with all of you. There's Gloria. Welcome, Gloria. I want to share the conversation after a preliminary meeting. Gus and I met with the county executive, and I don't want to call him I love Chris Trombar. I call him he needs one of those visors accountants have. So since he's now the budget director. So we want to make sure he has a full collection of hats for all the jobs he gets, including I got to give him a fishing hat because I met him I ran into him at the airport a couple of years ago. He was headed to Montana and I was headed to Wyoming, both going fly fishing. So he was just starting to fly fish. So it's kind of fun. But anyway, we met with Trumbauer and Pittman, and we went over the preliminary thoughts on our CIP. And I got to tell you, you know, Gus, jump in whenever, but they were very much in sync with where we were going and why. We covered the issues that we ran into. We shared with them our positions. Example was the college. Remember, they had several $1 million they wanted that wasn't there last year. All of a sudden they needed money to do their network front end that outsources outside the college, not the campus, but outside world. And the reason for, and so before we met with them, I had contacted, Napolitano, who's the IT guy for the county. And I said, do you know anything about this? Has the college even contacted you? Because we beat him up before for not working with the county collaborative. And he didn't know anything about it. So we chatted a bit, and what it looks like is when COVID hit last year, the college campus issues are confined to the college. All the classrooms there and the networking on campus is very robust. But when COVID hit, all of a sudden they had to take their classes external. And when they went external, all of a sudden they found, oops, we haven't been taking care of things very well. And they weren't prepared for that. Now the county was, and the county got all of the departments up on, whatever. And, some challenges, but they did it quite well. So what the college is doing, and as you know, when this COVID thing ends in the next few months or whatever, that demand will go back to on campus instead of external. So what they were doing was trying to hit us up for several $1 million. What was it? I think it was about $9 million to build their network. Well, the COVID relief from the feds was designed for that kind of stuff, for schools to get online and come up to speed. So they were, in my opinion, they were, I'll use my term, not theirs, double dipping. They're probably getting money from us and using the Fed money for something else, whatever. But at the end of the day, they got it, that what was going on. And so, but we talked about things like the shooting range at the our 5 items, one of the top ones at the shooting range. And in the discussion, apparently, Chris Trumbauer and Stewart went out to the training facility out there to take a look at it, and because there's a lot of money to put that safety, that what they want to do there, and lo and behold, it kind of, I don't want to quote somebody's words incorrectly, but you can get a lot done by either taking a caterpillar and taking a big berm of dirt put behind that, or put sandbags like they do everywhere else in zones to capture a stray bullet that may come through that wall or whatever. But the bottom line was there's some other ways to have solved it. And he asked us point blank, why did you guys want to support that? And I said, safety. We are taking it because of safety. There were no other options for us to latch onto. So we erred on safety and supported it. Now, if there's another option and the police and the department and you guys come up with a solution, I'd love to take that money off the table and reuse it elsewhere. And so I don't want to steal Naomi's thunder, but there was things like that. And we talked about pretty much all the major issues that we talked about at the PAB, including how we leveled the money. And one of the things that was important for them was, and I talked to you guys, sent you an email about most of this after we met, was that they wanted to support the fire training, the training facility for the fire department, and they they wanted to leave the money in for a location, and so they wanted to support that. So we swapped it back. The library in Millersville went in its place. Remember, we swapped them. Now we swapped them back, and that was in our preliminary letter. So everything's back on page. We talked about the Mayo Park and what part we were accepting and what part we wanted to push out and give. And I talked to Jessica Hare too. So they can have time. They're going to canvass the people and see what people really want. Not just those in Mayo, but other people. Like, I live in Heritage Harbor. I like that park too. So I mean, parks belong to everybody in the county, not just those in their backyard. And we talked a lot about making sure that we have a balance, especially in the underserved areas for recreation parks, making sure we're hitting where they need to hit. So all in all, I think that we didn't get anything new. We asked them directly, is there anything you're going to surprise us with, and you're running around the county doing your budget conversations and everything else, that you're going to come with us with a surprise project, and that enough to where it's going to tip our monies? And the answer was no. So they were very supportive of what we do, and the fact that we helped fight the battles that they weren't ready to get the budget balanced and get it down on a yearly basis. So I just wanted to share those conversations with you. And Gus, do you want to add anything to that?
Not a whole lot, but a couple things. One, we did talk about the electrification of vehicles and how that's going to a whole lot more comments and discussions in the future, and how exactly, it sounds easy to say, okay, all vehicles are going to be electric, but how do you actually implement that and do it? And that was one thing. And then the other concern that we all had is that the cost of building anything, the bricks and mortar stuff is getting so expensive, and cost increases are going up not by 2%, 3%, but they're going up by 20, 30, 40%. And that's a concern across the board on anything that has to be built in the future. So
least the immediate future. I mean, what goes up comes down. So I just read a very lengthy economics issue on the current cost of building material and why, and how we got there over the last few years. And it was really interesting. I'd be glad to send it to you. This will come back down. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting how it happened, both with COVID and just how it came about. So, but, I think just wanted to share with you that the administration understood the things we did and why we did them. And I thought it was a good exchange, and they weren't trying to change anything. I think they were pretty much embracing, the scope of what we're trying to do. Now, tonight, Naomi's going to share with us what has changed, both from the state monies, grants have improved, stuff for schools improved. There's been several buckets where the monies have changed, and only to our favor. So, the good news is we had some good news, after when we wrote the preliminary. I think we're going to have some more good news tonight. So to expedite tonight, what I asked Naomi to do was to go ahead and take the changes and populate them on the spreadsheet we used in our last meeting, but highlight them so we can see where she'll take us through all the changes that she's made. So she's starting with a populated spreadsheet for us. Okay, and just to get us on a fast track, because we've already set our priorities on years on all of these different projects, and there really isn't a reason to change any of that. I don't think. There may be, but I think for the most part, when you see when she's finished that, everything's come together better than I had expected even. And I'm a pretty positive person on this stuff usually. All right, well, with that, what I'd like to do is turn the meeting to Naomi and let her take us through. What happened to Gloria? I don't see her on there anymore. Did she drop off?
Yes.
Oh, okay. She must have had something. All right, Naomi, the floor is yours. Thank you for everything you've done for us.
Thank you. If I could share my screen so I can get started here.
Jesse, could you make Naomi a co-host?
Yes, 1 second. So if you recall, when you all finished your preliminary deliberations, the over affordability figure was around $38 million. And then at that particular juncture, I had the conversation with Jerry indicating we thought we were going to get some additional bond premiums. So we put in an additional $10 million, bringing the number down to about $28 million in over affordability. And so what I'd like to do is just walk you from how we got from 28 to where we think we're going to be, and just go through it line by line. I do have a summary spreadsheet, which kind of consolidates it and makes it a little easier to move through the material. But we certainly can go through line by line should you wish to do that also. Okay, bear with me. Okay, are you all able to see my spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so what this is a summary of the adjustments that have occurred between February and today. And I've kind of chunked them by class, as you can see here on the left-hand side. And then along the top, you can see I've really roughly categorized them into 3 areas. We have cuts, we have funding changes, and then we have some additions. Okay, so in looking at the general county class, the net impact on this was about $1.9 million. And the bulk of that was the addition of $850,000 to a project called additional salt storage. Originally, Chris Phipps generously had indicated that he could take a reduction in that particular project in fiscal year 24, despite the fact that it had been in the fiscal year 21 approved program. Well, as we were moving through the process and we're able to determine that we were actually positioned quite well, this is us just putting back that $850,000 that was in the FY21 approved program.
Good.
You can see here an application of a small little grant money there to county facilities and systems upgrade. And then we have the Information Technology Enhancement Project. This $1.1 million is actually not a project cost increase. It's actually a shifting of PAYGO. So originally we had PAYGO coming in from other funds, the Solid Waste Management and Utility Fund. And digging deeper into the details, we were able to determine, okay, we actually need to shift that a little bit. And so this is us utilizing just a little general fund PAYGO. But the overall capital project is still at the same total cost as you had originally seen it.
Right.
And moving on to the public safety class, we have the addition of the Woodland Beach Voluntary Fire Station. Now, I don't know if you recall, but I believe it was last year, they had $1 million deappropriated because it had been sitting there for a period of time. And they were, actually in the process of trying to secure a new location. Well, it's finally coming to fruition. And so they've come back and asked for their $1 million back. And so this is us just putting it back into the budget so that they can move forward with their tentative plans.
Question about that one?
Yes.
Is that new location then not the corner of Route 2 and 214?
It is, bear with me. It is the school complex off Maryland 214 Stevens Lane, co-location with the elevated water storage tank. Is that what you were thinking? It's
So
with
right,
the
there's
Board
a
of
sign.
Education.
Okay, so it's a currently developed lot, or is it the undeveloped parcel? Sorry, right now the sign is in a forested undeveloped area. I'm just wondering if they found a developed area they could refurbish.
To be honest with you, I don't have these specifics in front of me, but I certainly could get you that information.
Okay, that would be helpful. Thank you. Sorry, I don't want to delay things, but.
No, not at all. Let me just make a note.
Okay.
Okay, so you can see my pivot table again, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So we have the new police firing range. This particular project, as Jerry had mentioned, has been removed at this particular juncture, and that's a reduction of about $14 million.
Now, I want to make sure I was clear. It is a collaboration between the police chief and the police department and the administration. It wasn't forced upon them. So they did find a different solution.
Yes. And then, of course, we have the Jessup Fire Station in recalculating impact fees. We're actually able to apply an additional $1.3 million to this project.
Good.
In moving down into the class of recreation and parks, we have a project called Greenways, Parkland, and Open Space. And we've actually added $1 million to this particular capital project. It will be going toward Matt Johnson on his, the county's priorities under his purview. This will actually help Brecken Parks pursue the acquisition of priority forest areas and put them in a more permanent, preserved standing. So that's $1 million going toward that particular project.
Naomi, I have a question before you move on from there. Where did we find that extra $1 million?
So we'll go through. You actually can kind of see it here, but I'll summarize it nice and neat for you.
Okay.
Because I'm going at it at kind of a little granular level here.
We
But
don't necessarily find it, though. We add it or take it away. One of the others, not found.
yeah. In moving down the page, we have South Shore Trail. This was an ad of $2 million. It's actually technically not an ad, it's a funding shift. There was originally about $2 million in other state grant funding that they thought they were going to be able to secure in fiscal year 24. And that is not as looking as promising. And so at this point, we've just shifted that funding from grant funding to bond funding. Mayo Beach Park improvements. This project has been reduced by about $7.5 million. But you can see down here, we've actually created a new project called Mayo Beach Park Renovations. And what this does is it basically carves out that $2 million and puts it into its own project with a very specific scope that goes toward renovations in that particular area.
And that's the ones we agreed to be
Correct.
done before the road work starts. Okay.
Correct. So the net effect is 0 on this. I'm just more clearly defining what that funding is going to be used for.
Great. Can you
Did the
share what those improvements are? Because I think Melanie would like to know that also, and I would. So whatever those, the detail of that new defined project, it's great to see a scope finally come around to it.
Yes, I can certainly get that information for you.
Great, thank you.
And where is the difference with the 5.447? I mean, they went,
So this is the reduction here, the 7.5, and this is the add of 2 million. So then,
so over $5 million didn't go to 26 because we had talked about shifting it out further. Are you?
so that's been completely removed. Those out year funding have been completely removed at this particular juncture.
Okay.
In moving down, we have the application of additional grant funding. In total, actually, I lost my little thing here, but $6-7 million in additional grant funding have been applied to
Great.
recreation and parks. So yeah, it's really helped us out. And so really the net reduction in recreation and parks as a result of grant funding and cuts, it's about $10.3 million cut from this particular project class. Let's see that here.
All right.
Moving down to the roads and bridges class, we have a small add to the transportation facility planning of about $300,000. This is to get additional information on, and bear with me, I've looked at so many things, it's beginning to get a little crazy here. It says a study to divert traffic from Conway Road and an additional corridor, it looks like. So that is what the $300,000 for is in that particular project. We were able to get about $200,000 in state grant funding. And this one's going to be applied to the SL pole replacement capital project, which is right here. And on top of it, again, in recalculating the impact fees, we were able to apply $2.6 million of impact fees to the Solly Road shared use path.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so the net impact on the roads and bridges class is about a reduction of $2.5 million. Okay, Board of Education. Let me start by saying the net impact is a reduction of $6.7 million.
Start with the good news.
Yes, so there are several balls in the air on this particular one. The first thing is the IAC funding structure. So originally, when you all saw the proposed budget, there was about, I believe it was like $240 million of IAC funding spread across the 6 years. In getting the what they call the 90% report from the state, what I've done is I've applied the known figures to fiscal year 22 and what we can reasonably project out in fiscal year 23. And then I've kind of done some shifting. So the shift has been year over year, but then the total amount is about the same. Before it was lumpy with fiscal year 22 with $30 million, and then 23, it was almost like $60 million, which is very optimistic. And
So we only get about 35 to 37 million a year.
correct. And so what I've done is I've kind of smoothed it to average about $40 million a year. Just
Ah,
our affordability, was structured more reasonably. So when you see adjustments to IAC here, that is the smoothing effect. There were a couple of small adds. We had a $3.5 million add to building systems renovation. This is actually a project increase in the fiscal year 22. And we also had a couple of small adds here. Now, I should say that actually Board of Education made some reductions on their side, totaling about $4.4 million. So again, it's kind of a slight funding shift. They requested additional funds, and then they stepped to the plate and reduced funding requests on some projects. So again, the net effect is relatively zero. We also,
Gus and I had a good conversation with the administration on this topic, and they were prepared for the schools to deal with this anyway. So it was good. These are good numbers.
yes. We also had the application of bond premium totaling about $8.4 million, which helped us with regard to affordability. And you can see here that we've had the addition of bonds, but what I can tell you is it's the funding shift from IAC to general county bonds.
Right.
Building system renovation is increasing $7.8 million. That is actually a net zero might be a smidge more.
Not far off.
Correct. And I say that because we had a change in the IAC funding, but they, in the out years from fiscal year 23 to 27, they have a flat amount there. And in fiscal year 23, we're actually slated to get less from the IAC. So we've had to offset that potential reduction in IAC funding with bonds. And so it's a little bit less. They also anticipated getting about $8 million a year from the IAC on this particular project, when really we usually only see about 5. So I've kind of tried to correct that to make sure that it was a little more reasonable in expectation.
Yeah, Alex, a little over optimistic frequently.
And then impact fees. So, up above, we were doing great. Yay, impact fee projections. Well, this is us updating our impact fees. Unfortunately, it's looking not in the right direction. So I've had to swap out some originally planned impact fee funding to bonds. And that totals about a $1.5 million add. Now I am waiting for the March numbers. So I'm really hopeful that once we get the March numbers in and I crank it through my spreadsheet and update my projections, I might be able to, take that out and apply impact fees, but I wanted to remain conservative at this particular time. So, and moving down the page, we have the community college in which we applied about $4.3 million of bond premium. And again, that's a reduction in our affordability. And then, of course, I'm sure you're aware, the library grant, we were able to secure another $1 million. So that has also helped us tremendously with our affordability. The net impact is about $37 million reduction in affordability. On top of that, we also had some great news that we are anticipating another $15 million of PAYGO. So we are positioned very well. Let me see if I can show you I think I actually have to stop sharing my screen in order to get you the summary. Bear with me here. Do we have a drum roll?
Yeah,
Okay, so this, based on all of those things that I just presented to you, and I moved very quickly and it was on a high level, but we can certainly go through on a more granular level later on, should you wish. But this is the summary of all that. And so you can see here in fiscal year 22, we have the $65 million in PAYGO, thereby adjusting our affordability to about $195 million in fiscal year 22. After application of the county executive request of 181, we are actually under affordability by $13.2 million, which is really great, because up here we are actually borrowing funding from future years. And this is our way of making it right. We start out with 170 and we say, okay, we've utilized $40 million of future year funding. Let's correct that. And then we, of course, we have our pay-goes. We've gone from utilizing forward funding to actually being structured really very, very well. So moving down the page under the county executive request, you can see, like I said, in fiscal year 22, we're under about 13.2. But in 23, we're about $33 million over. And really the driving factor on this is schools. We have a couple of old mill schools that are hitting that particular year. So that's the blip there. But you can see in the out years, we're actually doing pretty good. And so the net effect of all of this is being under affordability of about $14 million.
For the 6 years.
Correct, over 6 years. So in summary, how do we get there? We had $15 million of pay-go. We actually had additional bond premium. Originally, you all had included 10, but we ended up getting actually a total of 13. So there's just a smidge there. We were able to secure an additional $2 to $3 million of impact fees. And then, of course, with the IAC shift and the bonds and the projects being a couple of $1 million, that's actually how we got to that, along with the grants. We actually had about $8 or $9 million of state grants. So those were the big overarching factors that took us from that $38 million to that $14 million. It was pay-go, bond premium, and state grants really were the driving factors in that.
Awesome.
So are there any questions at this particular time? Yes.
Naomi, I just have a general question because this is the first time I've been through this. So today is what, the 14th? Before this goes before the county council and is presented at the end of the month, will there be more changes with knowing that there's been grants that are awarded on the 15th of April or that kind of stuff? Will
the only shift that I could see, there shouldn't be any large swings. There shouldn't be, I'm not aware of any additional ads. The only thing I could see is maybe impact fees shifting. Like I said, I'm waiting on Q3 figures so I can work on my projections, and that might have a small shift. It would be immaterial, but that certainly could be something. But grants, I think we've captured 98%.
It's great. Yeah. I mean, yeah. We've got a lot since we've spoken. And can you remind me again what IAC stands for?
Interagency Commission.
That's the state portion of the school.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Well,
thank you. Appreciate it.
This is great. Now, yeah, tonight, we'll do a final. We have our priorities, on our preliminary letter. Obviously, for the final letter, we adjust the numbers for each of the columns based on what we have here. And we will take the firing range off of that list of 5, and we'll only have 4 items, which is perfect. And the question that remains in my mind is I think we're in a very good place compared to where we started of a $500 million off out of sync, over the 6 years. So, because the wants versus the the affordability was almost always, 500 million difference. The question is there anything in 23 that is ready enough for us to move the numbers forward a year to bring 22 closer to, net zero versus 13 million under? Did the administration make any suggestions?
They did. They actually made a couple of small shifts. There was one Rec and Parks project. I want to say it's Deal that they tried to pull forward as much as they possibly could. But like I said, they have 2 old mill high schools really.
You can't pull those forward.
Yeah, I mean, they're huge. They're absolutely huge. So Should we be able to massage the numbers and pull that forward into 22, we certainly will do so, but the net impact shouldn't change.
Yeah, so the net basically over 6 years, it is what it is.
Yes, it should be.
And
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
if you guys can massage and shift stuff from 23 to 22 to make those 2 years a little more
Absolutely.
balanced, you'll do that.
Absolutely. Mhm.
And other than that, there's no additional recommendations. Is that it?
That's correct.
Wow.
So does anyone have any other questions or wanted to look at anything else?
Naomi, I think you've done a great job.
Thank you.
I think everybody has, you guys give yourselves a pat on the back for getting it down to where it's even reasonably can be worked. I mean, if we didn't do it, somebody was going to have to. And it's always better if we can make those recommendations, with the departments as opposed to being done elsewhere, further down the line. This is a good plan. One of the better ones we've had that I've seen over, 10, 11 years or whatever it is, forever.
I'm very fortunate.
So it,
Certainly we'll
we've-
get you
yeah,
oh, I apologize.
go ahead.
That additional information on the Mayo Beach scope and the Woodland volunteer fire station, the location information. on it.
Right.
Oh, yes, Elizabeth?
All right, again, first timer at this. So this will go forward to the county council, and then just like we're going through now with Plan 2040, I'm sure there will be some adjustments.
Yes, it is early April.
But I guess my question is, what do we expect, or can you even answer that question in general? Will county council go down to wanting a specific line item move from 27 to 23? I mean, can they do that, or what
Yeah.
do we expect?
They could make funding shifts, based on recommendations of the auditor, or they could have potential ads, or actually they can't technically add. They would have to kind of go through the county executive process on
They
that.
can shift around, but.
Right,
yeah.
but
And we don't get involved in rebuttals or why we did what we did. We
No.
just let the administration work and figure it out. Okay.
Well, we're the biggest, the big things is, over the years, we have several things have taken some of the political stuff out of this equation, Elizabeth. In that, in past years, I'll just go back to 10 years ago. You could have a food fight at the county council. I want my school first. I want my school first. And I want this thing first.
Just like a regional plan.
It's almost, well, except we've solved much of that. One is we've done things with the library, which was a big one. And we've done it primarily with the schools and the college, where we put together a MGT study that prioritizes, that takes that food fight away. So the schools that get positioned in our calendar years and our CIP follow
Right.
the MGT study. So a school that's slated to be number 89th can't slide up to number 70 just because a council member wishes it to. So that has just gone away in the last 7 or 8 years since the MGT study. I think it was done. It was done after, right about the time I started on the PAB. So that solved a lot of that, and the library followed the same path, if you will, plus administration involved in the board of the library. And so there's a relationship between the administration and the library now, more than there was before. And they've gotten off of the 62,000 square foot libraries back down to the 30,000 realistic libraries. So they're not going to be, community, testimonials anymore. There'll be a library at the reasonable size that fits the community. So, I mean, there's been a lot of changes in the way some of these major departments have worked with the county and the CIP, and our PAB has been very instrumental in trying to help smooth this out over the last decade. So what you're seeing today is, even though the request always comes in, 500 million more than we can afford, we get to the same place with the same processes and under the same rules. So can the county council play with that? Of course.
Oh, yeah.
But I have seen very little of that in recent years. Gus has been on for 6 or 7 years. It really smoothed that out. Gus, you want to comment at all?
No, and I think that's true. The county council can do whatever they want, but there are limitations. And the reason we do this long-term planning is so we try to eliminate any adjustments that surprise anybody.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the key thing is a plan that doesn't have surprises. So, well, that's one of the things that, I've talked to the administration last few years about. One of my concerns was Parks and Rec. And Parks and Rec, we'd look at like you took last year and look at our 6-year plan for Parks and Rec, it has a plan. And every time you wake up another year, somebody found a new plan and they want it done the very next year. And instead of looking at it over a course of time and working it into a plan that can be smoothed out, like we're trying to do with schools and other things, they all of a sudden that plan, well, we're ready to go next year. And it wasn't even in the plan last year. So things like that put real ripples in planning. And so I think it's great they find some new place to have some new thing or park or whatever, but it has to slip in the plan someplace rather than just next year. And so a lot of those things really got worked over pretty good. So when it comes to capital, it'll be interesting. It won't, I can guarantee you it won't be, at least it hasn't been. They very seldom have questions for us because the plans have been good. I mean, Gus, you've been to the council with me in the past. They have very, very few questions because they're workshop. They understand it, the logic behind how we got to where we are. And they know that they can't move too many things. The schools are the hot buttons and they can't move their schools anymore or their library or whatever. So it took a lot of that away, and thank goodness. And so, but
That helps. Thank you. I'm just,
yeah, it won't be like
we'll
the
watch and
CA
see.
Yeah, it won't be like the 10 years GDP. But we all have our jobs. Yeah, we'll double our salaries for next year. How's that, guys?
Yeah.
Other questions on ours? Because what I'd like, is there any other questions?
Jerry, I'd make a comment, and the comment would be that we are blessed to be in the position that we're in right now, given the pandemic that we've been through.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We thought we would be a year ago is much different than how it turned out.
Yeah.
But you're right. We're lucky. All right. What I would like to propose, and I'll ask for a motion on this. I'd like to propose that we that I'll work with Don and the staff and Jessica to write a a final deliberation letter on the CIP. It'll look almost identical to the preliminary. I'll take out the firing range, leave the 4 items that we had there. Naomi will adjust the numbers for each of those columns that are in that letter. And that letter will, and I'd like to do this, if we can we get it by Monday? Okay, you've seen the letter, so you just have to edit the numbers and everything.
Yes.
Soon as we get it, what I'd like to do, as soon as I get the draft, we'll send it to all of you so you can preview the draft. You'll get a couple of days to look at it, and give your comments back to Jessica and Don, and or Naomi for questions, and we'll button it up and send it off to the county exec and the council.
So Jerry, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the proposed budget changes that were presented tonight and the shifts that were made, and that the preliminary letter will be forthcoming. We'll review that and then approve that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've done another successful capital budget year and 6 years out. Thanks for everybody's hard work and
Yes.
and input and suggestions. It's great. And Elizabeth, I'll just tell you that when we do this next year, you won't get to play that newbie card anymore. So you only get it one season.
And I used it well.
You did a fine job. Actually, you contributed greatly, so I appreciate it. I mean, Melanie also greatly. I couldn't be happier by, the different backgrounds, the makeup of the PAB right now. I'm just delighted. So, guys don't, not that you ever needed me, you don't need me anymore at all, really.
Yeah,
So,
right.
all right, with that, any last minute questions for anyone? We probably won't have a meeting now until, my guess, until one of these master plans show up, which,
July 1st. Rick Fisher's
Yeah.
presentation to the
so
Maryland.
unless there's something that pops up, July 1st will be, somewhere in July will be our next meeting. Now,
Has the county ruled on how much longer you'll work remotely versus going back in person? Is there?
no, but
We don't have an
there's
official
talks, the
policy.
county council's been talking about heading towards the June sessions and at the council. So
Right, I know
if they do that,
haven't-
the other parts of the county will begin to open with it.
Right. Yeah. No, I had heard that. I thought it was July, 1 July was what they were talking about, but that makes sense because they'll recess in August.
Yeah. No, last I heard, the council was looking at having it in the chambers June.
In June.
I think the forecast was, a lot of people use is, everything will be over July 4th, but I don't know who, whatever. The fireworks will happen and everybody will be happy. But that's what I know. And that was in the paper. So. All right. Any other questions?
I did have, Jerry, one question for Naomi. If she could send me the information specifics on that Sally Road corridor funding that was given.
The impact fees?
Yes, that was 2.5 or 2.6 million on Sally Road.
I believe I'll include that with the rest of the information.
Okay, thank you.
And Gus, I'll start working on the letter for you for the county
presentation.
council on the 30th. The Friday, the 30th is the council budget presentation. So any of you that want to go down, and usually we're on at 1 o'clock. I don't, that's usually, if anybody wants to go down and sit with Gus feel free to.
Want to be by Zoom?
Oh, that's right. That's right. It's by Zoom, but
Okay.
whatever. Me, I booked my tickets. I'm out of Dodge, man. I'm out here. I'm gonna go hug
Enjoy,
the grandkids.
enjoy.
I'm gonna go hug good. And my daughter turns 50, so I'll be in California for that one. All right, I know I'm too young to have a 50-year-old daughter.
That's
Listen.
right.
All right, anything else? All right, I could thank you all.
Motion
Could
to
use a
adjourn.
motion to end the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you
A
all.
Good night.
lot of hard
Yeah.
work.